it's Brenda back in Brenda's quilt room. I have a new scrappy like 1930s, 1940s project that I want to show you, and it's hanging here behind me. Now, I tried to get some permission information. This quilt pattern is called Going Green, and it is out of this magazine, the American Patchwork and Quilting, from February of 2011. The designer of this pattern is Darlene Zimmerman. And here's a picture of the quilt that was in the magazine. Periodically, I'll sit down and I go through my magazines and see what do I still have in there that I really want to make. Well, I've told you before, I'm trying to use up a lot of scraps. And if you've been with me for very long, you know I made a whole bunch of quilts from a lady of a church where we used to pastor. She passed away, and she was about 101, almost 102 years old. And anyway, her daughter, one of her daughters, gave me some scraps that were hers. And additionally, I also had some original feed sacks. And if you know anything about the feed sacks from the past, at the top of the sack that had flour or sugar or whatever you were purchasing, it had a fabric piece. And so I took those along with like a charm pack that I had that was a reproduction of 1930s, and I wanted to make this quilt. Now, somewhere along the way, someone gave me a whole bunch of this mint green material, which was so popular back then. And as I was cutting, I realized I didn't have quite enough, which is why some of the blocks are set together with this green. So, and I thought, well, it doesn't really matter. The whole scheme of it was back then they used what they had. And so this is my version of this. Now, I didn't actually have quilting permission, although, like I said, I reached out several times to no avail with the magazine and the designer. So I'm just going to tell you and show you my way of putting this together, because I don't always follow the instructions. I like to sometimes do my own thing, or a lot of the time I do my own thing. This block, let me tell you, the blocks are 7 inches square, and the center of these square blocks, the block in the middle is 4 inches. You'll need 40 of those, and you will also need 41 of these that has the melons in them, and they're also 7 inches. Now, you can put together a 7-inch block by cutting rectangles that are 2 inches by 4 inches, and then 2 additional rectangles that are 2 inches by 7 inches, and it'll come out to be the same size, 7-inch square, as this. But if you like doing applique, which I do, you could just cut out 7-inch squares and put your 4-inch square in the middle. If you want to find the middle, now you have to realize this is patched together because I didn't have enough of this fabric. But you can fold it into quarters and just kind of finger press it if you want to find the center, and then do the same thing with your little 4-inch square. Press it, fold it over, and press it again so that you have the center. And you can match up your little lines here and here. And you could literally, you could zigzag or blanket stitch just all the way around the middle instead of taking the time to do piecework, if that's what you like to do and it saves you time. And I was following the directions, so I didn't do that. But that's what I did when I made my melons. I folded the square in half, and in half again, and creased it with my finger to get the middle. And then I took my little petals and laid them out into the grouping that I liked. And these I wanted to show you because these are actual feed sacks. This is material that I got from the lady that had passed away. And then these are like reproductions, and they do a really good job of making reproduction fabric. Now you can either just cut your melons out, and what I used, and I've showed you this before in another orange peel project that I made. I used the 3-inch melon to make these, but this is a set that I got from Fat Quarter Shop, and it's So Emma, and it's an orange peel set, and it's got a couple of different sizes in here: 3-inch, 4-inch, 5 and 6-inch melons. So if you had these and you had 10-inch squares, and if they were all the same color, you could make this quilt, and you could make it bigger depending on what size melon you wanted to use. I did mine. I ironed out the fabric on this heat bond, and it's gluey on one side and it's a waxy paper on the other side. And all you have to do is lay your fabric down, face down. It only takes a few seconds with the iron. Now you may want to use what's called an applique pressing sheet, or a piece of wax paper or parchment paper, so that you don't end up with glue on your iron. And then take your melon template and lay it on your material and draw around it. And then when it's glued together, you would be gluing it like this. I did that incorrectly because you're going to heat it from the waxy paper side. And draw your melon on the paper. And then once it's adhered, then you can just take this, cut out on this side, and then peel the paper off of the back. So if you scrape it with your fingernail, can be a little bit fussy sometimes, but it peels right off, and you see the shiny, that's the glue. And so I just did that with 4 that I liked. I laid them down and pressed them with the iron down. And then what I did was I did a blanket stitch in the black. That was a lot of what they did in the past. They used a lot of black to outline their material. And that's what I did. Now, I don't think, she didn't do that in her original pattern. And it wasn't on the ones that had the little 4-inch square in the middle. But I wanted them to look alike. And so what I did, because I made mine patchwork, I went back and I did a blanket stitch all the way around these, so they would look more cohesive with the melon blocks. Now, somebody that I showed this to asked me, oh, did you do reverse applique? Well, no, I didn't. That's just how I was able to turn my blanket stitch inward on these, and then I turned it outward on the dial on my machine for this. So, like I said, you could make this and make it bigger. You could probably even go smaller, but I really wanted to use up that feed sack material, and I'm really happy with how this came out. It's really vibrant and colorful. It comes out to be a 67-inch square quilt. Now, they've scalloped like the edges on the pattern in the book, and I don't know if I will or I won't do that. I might. but it would have to be quilted first. And I might hand quilt this just on my lap over the winter time. I may do that, but I really like it. It wasn't hard. It went together pretty fast, actually. So if you don't have heat bond, you don't have to buy that. You can just simply lay your melon slices on your material. You could use tacky glue, just a little bit, Elmer's glue. You could even hold them in place there with just a glue stick if you wanted to, because it'll wash out when you wash the quilt, and you only need like a few dots around the edge, and then you place it down. You don't have to wait for it to dry. If you use a dry iron and just hold it there, it will dry the glue instantly. And so this is another really, I think, fabulous scrappy project that I was really anxious to show it to you. And I'm just really happy that I'm able to use up some materials that are that old that didn't make it into the landfill. So I love using scraps, and I'm gonna step aside and let you see this as much as possible. I just think it's really pretty. If you have an idea of how you think that I could quilt it and quilt around the melons and in the squares, let me know. Leave me a comment. And can't believe it's October and Christmas will be here. And in my next video, I'm going to be showing you a really easy project that you can make as a nice Christmas gift. So till next time, we'll see you later. Bye.